Hi everyone. Today I'll be explaining you about the ordering of these three hooks: use insertion effect, use layout effect, and use effect. Before understanding about the ordering of these hooks, we have to understand how browser works internally. So let's start. So initially, what browser does is it loads HTML, CSS, and JavaScript simultaneously. From HTML, our browser creates document object model. From CSS, our browser creates CSS object model, and JavaScript is basically used to manipulate HTML and CSS. Like after this, our browser creates render tree. Uh, you have a question, right? What is render tree? So render tree is nothing but it contains mapping between DOM and CSS DOM. What is the meaning of this? That means, let's say you have some h1 tag in your HTML. So what will be the CSS related to this h1 tag? That is the mapping you can assume, right? Once this render tree is created, our browser will start layout calculation. So layout calculation is nothing but our browser will calculate width and height of each of these elements in the HTML, right? And once the layout calculation is done, our browser will start painting this layout in our screen. That means after this painting, UI will be visible to the user after this painting phase, right? Now I think you have understand how browser basically loads all these things. So let's understand where all this hooks is getting called. So use insertion effect is getting called before the layout calculation happens, right? So and use layout effect is getting called when before the painting phase, and it's a synchronous, and use effect is getting called after this painting phase, right? So I'll explain you when you should use each of these hooks. Let's say you have some style to be changed dynamically. So let's say you are changing that style inside use effect, right? So what will happen is initially all this process will happen, a render tree will be created, layout will be calculated, then entire UI will be painted, right? Their style will be old one. Now inside use effect you have changed the style. That means after the painting phase you have changed that style, right? So again what will happen is that virtual DOM will be there, right? They will be giving algorithm, then rendering will start, right? Those are the stuffs which React does. After that, what happens is internally, again the layout calculation will happen, and again the painting browser will paint the screen, right? So it's a kind of double work. So let's say, yeah, it's a double work. So what you can do is instead of changing a style inside use effect, instead of adding dynamic style inside use effect, you can add style inside use insertion effect, because use insertion effect is getting called before the layout calculation will happen, right? So that means your updated style will only be here, right? So after that your layout calculation will happen, then painting will occur, right? So you have optimized your performance. So mostly use insertion effect is used for dynamic styling only. Then after that we have use layout effect. So use layout effect is the synchronous one, right? So what is the meaning of synchronous? Until the code is executed inside use layout effect, your UI will be blocked. You won't be going to the painting phase. The browser won't paint your screen. Your UI will not be visible. Let's say inside use layout effect you have run a while loop infinite times, then you won't be able to see your UI, right? So you have to use this use layout effect carefully. In fact, React people suggest that most of the time you must use effect only, because use layout effect hampers performance. You should use layout effect only. It's very necessary, right? Yeah. Once the yeah, next use effect. Once the entire UI is visible to the user, then after that use effect will run. You have seen most of the example that you are calling your fetch API inside this use effect. Then what happens is initially your API is rendered with empty data. Then after that your fetch call will happen. Then data will come from the backend, and then your new data will be shown in that page, right? So that is happening because of this only. Yeah, I think you have understand about the ordering of all these hooks.